Wow.
She's really putting her body and her health on the line here to compete for Wales.
She will be resting after this, though. This is an amazing moment for her, as it is for many of these athletes. Once again, competing in front of a packed audience.
Yeah. Angus Nenmuir and Gemma MacArthur for Scotland will get us underway, having seen their teammates pick up the gold in the 3-metre mixed. What have Scotland got from the 10-metre platform, starting off with those required dives, the lower degree of difficulty, reverse dive and pike.
So as the competition gets underway, quick reminder, the scoring on the synchronized, there is execution marks, which will be the top line, and those judges are just looking how well the execution of the dive is done. Each diver gets 2 marks, and then the bottom line, which it says synchronization, specifically whether they are in sync or indeed not so in sync.
Now,
I'm sure you're all diving experts by now, having joined us for the past 5 days.
If you are not, then there's no excuse,
No
really,
excuse.
is there? Jelson Jabalin and the great Pandalela of Malaysia. She's like Madonna. She just goes by her first name. 2-time Olympic medalist, world bronze as well this summer. 29 years old now. She is a giant of Malaysian diving.
Beautifully executed by both divers, ripping their entries into the water, hardly any splash. They'll get 9s maybe on the execution, and the synchronization, moving the arms at the same time. Yeah, that is going to be over 50 points, and if it is, that's the gold standard. Yes, it is.
Yeah, 51.6. No wonder she's smiling. Aidan Heslop and Ruby Thorne, this is the young athlete, 16 years old, that we were talking about, with that perforated eardrum on her left-hand side, the plaster over the ear. And Aidan Heslop, the cliff diver, the adrenaline junkie, normally dives from 27 metres for Wales for the first time at a Commonwealth Games.
Oh, very nice. Good synchronization. You've got to ask the questions, because Aidan is clearly taller, isn't he, in Ruby? That makes matching. Good distance from the diving board. I like the synchro. Should get 8s on synchro. 46.8, very commendable. Team Wales underway.
Big roar for the familiar face of Lois Toulson to diving fans. World silver medalist, 2-time Commonwealth medalist with a 10-metre silver earlier on this week, diving for the first time in competition with Kyle Katari, who just missed out on a medal in the men's 10-metre synchro. He did that 4th.
1, 2, 3, go.
Oh, nice. 1, 2, 3, go. Ever so slightly out of time hitting the water. But other than that, synchronization is spot on. Execution very strong as well. That could be just shy of 50 points, which will tuck them in at this moment behind the Malaysian pairing.
Yeah, just shy of that 50-point gold standard for a really good required dive. Rylan Weens and Selena Toth. 10 years between these guys in age. And Rylan, 10-metre silver medalist, 10-metre synchro silver medalist as well. Put in some fantastic dives yesterday's final.
So very similar to Kyle and Lois. It's the same dive and pretty much the same slight error. The only thing wrong with that, it's in the water tad different times. Should be about the same marks-wise. Execution strong, 8, 8.5 maybe for both divers. Clean entries.
It's exactly the same mark, 48.6.
Everyone is actually doing a back dive for the remainder of the 3 pairs, so we get like for likes now.
And here he is, the champion from the 10-metre platform last night, Cass Rousseau of Australia. The flashy showman, the former circus performer. Teamed up here with Emily Boyd.
1, 2, 3, go.
Oh, very clean. So they're hitting the water at the same time, but Cass is a little further away. And I could probably explain that by him just taking the edge off his jump in order to be in time with Emily. So he has scooted back away from the diving board a little further. So the execution marks are good for both divers. The doing distance from the diving board means that they get 8s on synchro. So they're right up there in second now. Noah and Andrea.
Yeah, the breakout star for English diving. Andrea Spendolini-Syriax, 10-metre champion. Silver in the 10-metre synchro. And Noah Williams, who also won gold in the 10-metre synchro.
Both known for their ability to get into the water with hardly any splash, which is exactly what the judges will be looking for. Beautiful execution on the back dive there, 9s, 8.5s on execution. I can't see how it'd be anything less than that. Little bit of difference on the synchronization, 8s to count. Pretty much bob on 50 points, 49.8.
Very good indeed, great start. And Dom Bedgood and Melissa Wu, the most experienced pairing by a country mile.
Ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
For Australia.
So on paper, it's probably these two, isn't it? Okay, so Dom Bedgood has just dived in the 3-metre mixed, and he's had about 10 minutes to get himself over that and up onto the 10-metre, and maybe he'll be a little bit fatigued, not quite getting a clean entry into the water. So for our favourites on paper, they'll find themselves down in 5th, but of course, limited degree of difficulty. There won't be much to choose between the pairs.
And there's not much to choose between the medalists at the moment. Pandalella and Javelin of Malaysia out in front, ahead of Noah Williams, Andrea Spendolini-Syriax with Casil Russo and Emily Boyd in the bronze medal spot. Kyle Katari and Lois Toulson are in 5th, but only 4 points of the gold medal. Nothing in it. So Angus Menmuir and Gemma MacArthur in 8th of 8 after the first round of required dives.
3, go.
One more round to go before the difficulty level cranks up.
So it's good from Angus and Gemma. It's just a touch further out than Gemma, so the synchronization will be less than 8s. Keeping their composure. They have completed their requireds now. Focus shifts towards the optionals, but not yet for Ruby and Aidan.
Now the leaders, Pandalella and Javelin of Malaysia.
Up.
Back dive piped.
Go.
So out of time on the takeoff. Pandalella reaches the water first. You can see that's quite a considerable difference. The judges will penalise for that. So instead of 8s, maybe 8.5s on synchro. You can see the difference in hitting the water means it's 7s. Yes, could prove to be a little costly when it comes down to the wire, which I'm sure it will be. Okay, now it's Team Wales. I'm getting ahead of myself. I was actually looking at the leaderboard as opposed to the start list.
It's been a long week.
I'm slightly fatigued. I'm sure some of the divers are.
These two are fresh though. This is the first time that Ruby Thorne has stepped out onto the platform. 16 years old for Wales. Reverse dive in pike.
Solid second round dive. You can see Aidan there doing a wonderful job of just skipping his knees. That doesn't straighten up as much as he would normally. And that means he's in perfect time with his partner. 8s on synchro, I hope to see.
8s it is. 44.4. Now Lois Toulson and Kyle Katari in 5th, it says on the graphic, but in reality that's just 3 points off the gold medal. I always say you can't win a title on the required dives, but you can lose one.
Yeah, keeping themselves exactly where they need to be, which is in the mix synchro. Good distance, same distance from the diving board. Actually, different distances from the diving board. 8.5s, 8s on synchro, yes.
Yeah, the crowd like it. 8.5s, 49.8, just shy of that 50-point marker. They go into the lead ahead of the Malaysians. Rylan Weems and Selena Toth are in 4th, but again, just a couple of points in it.
Great execution from both Rylan and Selena. Selena just half a metre, maybe a bit more further out. So instead of 9s, 7.5s and 8s on synchro, maybe 8s because everything else was just beautifully done synchronization-wise. So there you see a good selection of marks, execution, and synchro 8s. Canada poised.
Yeah, tied with Malaysia now behind England's Kyle Katari and Lois Toulson. The 10-metre champion Cass Rousseau and Emily Boyd. Reverse dive in pike again.
Ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
Well, that's the best synchro we've seen.
Mirror image.
Mirror image. Right now, how Cass is managing to do that.
Well, because he's so powerful and so
powerful
flashy,
and
isn't he?
Flash and springy, yeah, and just, I mean, Emily's very strong. And yeah, what's it, 52.2 is the highest we've seen on these required dives.
That's the new marker to beat, isn't it? 101 from the 2 rounds of required dives, breaking that 100 barrier.
Yeah, that's great.
That's the ideal. Can Noah Williams and Andreas Spendolini-Siriex of England follow suit? 3 Commonwealth medals between them so far.
They can follow suit. That is like for like with the Australian pair before them. Exactly the same dive. By the time Andrea and Noah get into the pike shape, they're in perfect synchro all the way. Slightly out of time getting into it. Other than that, bang on the money. Let's see, the judges will go with them, I'm sure.
Well, yes, you might be able to tell that the scores come up on a big screen here in the Aquatic Centre before they appear on the screen for you watching at home. So the reaction of the crowd will tell you that projects Noah Williams and Andreas Spendolini-Siriex up into the lead ahead of the first Australian team. Here's the second. They're in 5th.
And they'll slot nicely in medal contention. Not as good as Noah and Andrea just before, or indeed as good as Cass and Emily. So they'll find themselves still in contention, but about 6 to 8 points, 8 points behind the leaders. But now it gets interesting. Now we will see the cracks appearing.
But let's have a look at the standings for now. Noah Williams, Andreas Spendolini-Siriex, a point ahead of Cassale Rousseau and Emily Boyd of Australia. And Kyle Katari, Lewis Toulson are up in the medals as well. But look at that, 3 teams all tied on 97 points, with Aidan Heslop and Ruby Thorne of Wales in 7th, Angus Menmuir and Gemma MacArthur of Scotland, who appear to get round 3 underway. They're down at the bottom of the standings. Optional dives then begin now. This is where the degree of difficulty turns up several notches. Creativity and the jeopardy.
Oh, great optional dive from Angus and Gemma. 4.3.5 in the pike position. Similar spin speeds. Same distance from the diving board. Hitting the water at the same time. All the component parts are in the right place. A little low on the execution marks.
Pandalela and Jabalin of Malaysia. One of those 3 teams all tied on 97 points. Just fractionally outside the medals.
Great execution from both divers. Pandalela just a little further away from the diving board, spinning a little bit slower, so there's differential in the style of the dive or how it's performed. But the execution of the dive will really bolster their total score. Clean into the water. Gets them back up a little bit more in the threatening for medals zone. And this is a huge dive for Aidan and Ruby.
Wow, 3.3 degree of difficulty
chosen.
in the whole field.
In the whole field.
Now, Aidan is a cliff diver, so he's used to these enormous degrees of difficulty. Ruby's 16 years old at her first Commonwealth Games. Back 3.5 somersaults in tuck.
Ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, go.
Oh, brilliant stuff! Look, she's hit the water with such force that the tape holding, well, protecting her ear has been torn from her. Back 3.5 somersaults in the tuck position. This is incredibly brave for them to do this, and it's gone really, really well.
Wow, I held my breath the whole way down.
Me too. Well done, Ruby. Yes, as you should be.
Yeah, what courage.
Super. And she hasn't been in the pool. She hasn't been able to train. She's bleeding from her ear. That's the most difficult dive. Team Wales. Boom.
Got some big ones to come as well. This is 3.0 degree of difficulty for Kyle Katari and Lois Toulson. Forward 3.5 somersaults in pike. They're in third in the bronze medal position.
Oh, yes. This is what we were all hoping for. Beautiful entries into the water as per their required, but these are the optionals. It gets more challenging to do that. This is a huge score because execution is 8 and synchronization is 8. Well done, Carl and Lois. Popping on the marker, turning up the heat in this mixed synchro 10 metre. Just a quick check.
Watch it back. Now Rylan Weems and Selena Toth in fourth. And as I said, 3 teams, all on 97 points.
Ready?
Back 2.5 somersaults, 1.5 twists.
Here, if you didn't see it, you'll hear it. Fractionally out of time, hitting the water. You can see clearly on the replay, which the judges do not get the benefits from. Selena hitting the water ahead of Rylan, which means the synchro will be less than 7s, or it should be less than 7s. And even with a slightly higher degree of difficulty, see Canada slipping.
Yeah, just 6.5s to count for Canada.
Okay, let's see how they get on with the optionals. These are just outside the lead. Well, no, so they're second.
Yeah, they were by just 1 point
I just
after the required dives.
Cass is the fastest spinning diver I've ever seen.
Can Emily Boyd keep up?
Interesting, let's go.
Forward 3.5 somersaults in pike.
Well, it ended up better than I thought it might. So Cass, of course, won in dramatic fashion with a forward 4.5. So this is a very easy dive for him. So just popping into it, you can see, yeah, he's trying to take a little bit of zip out of it. But compared to Kyle and Lois, they were out of time, execution letting them down. So as I mentioned, the cracks can appear.
So Andrea Spendolini, Siriex and Noah Williams are leaders by a point after round 2. Round 3, a forward 3.5 somersaults in pike, 3.0 degree of difficulty.
Totally different, right? In time, all the way through. Marginally different spin speeds. Other than that, same distance, but both divers executing it beautifully. 7.5s and 8s for Andrea, maybe a little bit more for Noah on his execution. Look at the smiles, they say it all. 8.5s, 8, 7.5, 71.
They've extended their lead at the top.
Very good. So a little gap to make up.
Yeah, they have.
Same dive.
27 and 30 years old now, 5 Commonwealth medals each.
Wow. Identical spin speeds. Look at that. Dominic rolling over as he goes through in his entry.
So close to the side of the platform there.
Yeah, he's got... Doesn't want to be too close to his diving partner.
61.2, that leaves him down in 7th.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to feature. It's not looking... But you can never write off experience.
Anyway, for England, gold and silver, 4 now as we enter the 4th round of diving. Pandelella and Javelin of Malaysia in the bronze medal position, just ahead of Cassale Rousseau and Emily Boyd of Australia. Ruby Thorne and Aidan Heslop in 6th, and Angus Menmuir, Gemma MacArthur for Scotland, down at the bottom of the table for now. They've got a couple of big dives, though, coming up, the Scots. In with 3.5 somersaults in tuck, 3.2 degree of difficulty, and they finish with a 3.2. So finishing with their 2 most complex dives.
Ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, go.
Oh, it's good, neat and tidy. Squeezing both of them into a very neat and tidy tuck position. Toes pointed, knees together.
.2.
Best dive so far from our Team Scotland, on a high from watching their teammates just win gold.
Pandelella and Javelin of Malaysia are in the bronze medal position, 4 points behind Kyle Katari and Lois Toulson in silver. And 7 points behind Andrea Spendolini, Siriex and Noah Williams in the gold medal position.
Go.
Execution is good from both Pandelella and Jealous of Javelin, but they are out of time. So even though the execution marks will support them, the synchro marks will not be more than a 6.5 or a 7. It needs to be better than that to challenge for the medals today. They're still going to be in the contention, not out of it yet.
Ruby Thorne and Aidan Heslop went for the big one, and the risk paid off in the last round. They're in 6th for Wales. 3.2 degree of difficulty inward 3.5 somersaults in tuck.
Ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, go.
Oh, Ruby just a little short as she went in. Must be adrenalised, hasn't had chance to train. Aidan does a great job on his inward 3.5. Puts his hips out to the side though. I noticed that in the individual event as well. You just see Ruby running out of room on the bottom of her inward 3.5 there. So the execution marks 4, 3.5 are for Ruby, 6s for Synchro. She's just filling in Aidan. Of course, he wasn't able to know how she got on.
Now the rule goes up for England's Kyle Kathari and Lois Toulson, currently in the silver medal position, 3 points behind their teammates, Andrea Spendolini-Siriex and Noah Williams, who are at the top of the standings by 3 points. Could be another Team England 1-2.
3, go.
Oh, it looks as though that could be on the cards. I was chatting to some of the England diving staff, and that was one of the predictions, hopes, aspirations, that it could be an England 1-2, and at the moment, that is exactly what we're looking at. Kyle and Lois throwing in their inward 3.5 there. A little bit shaky on the execution. Good synchro. Let's see how the rest of the pairs can respond.
A slightly lower degree of difficulty for Ryland Weems and Selena Toth here, just 3.0. Forward 3.5 somersaults in pike. They're in 5th. It's not out of the question to move themselves up.
We could certainly close the gap, but let's see. It needs to be good. It is okay. With a lower degree of difficulty, we would have been hoping for 8s and 8s plus, so their synchro will probably be 7.5, but you can see there, Selena not quite getting the entry that she would have wanted, so she'll be heavily penalised for the splash that she made. Maybe Ryland got penalised as well because the splash went over his way. I'm not sure. His looked a little better than that.
His was all right, yeah. Cass Rousseau and Emily Boyd slipped out of the medal spots by 6 points after the last round. 10 off the leading English pair, the English pair in silver.
Ready?
Kyle
1,
and Lois.
2, 3, go.
Oh, that's great. Even though Cass spins so much quicker, because they're in line, you can see Emily still in a tuck shape, and Cass has been out for half an hour. He's had a cup of tea, put his slippers on, and there he goes into the water. So much time, but beautifully done. Hit the water at the same time. That's going to prove to be decisive. Look at that, 8.5s on synchro. Wow, this pair are right in it again.
I imagine impact would knock your slippers off.
Yeah, you'd have to keep them on with some sticky tape.
Andrea Spendolini-Siriex and Noah Williams step forward for their penultimate dive of this final competition at the 2022 Commonwealth Games in the diving pool. Leaders by 3 points going into this penultimate round.
Oh, sensational! What a dive! Execution, 9s, synchro, marginally off. But let's hope that the judges are hypnotised, as I am, with that fantastic execution. Come on, judges.
The roar tells you everything you need to know. There are the 9s for synchronization, 9s for execution as well for Andrea. 84.48. It's a whopper of a dive. And that leaves them with one hand on the gold medal. Woo!
Brilliant.
258 4.18.
Could be out of reach.
Yeah, that is a big buffer going into the final round, isn't it?
Ready?
Doing the same dive,
1,
pretty
2,
much.
3, go.
Well, still hanging on in their fingernails. Dominic Bedgood and Melissa Wu, most experienced athletes. Dominic just not straightening out enough on the finish of the dive there, so he'll get heavily deducted, 5s probably, on his execution. Let's see if that's correct. It is 5.5. 7s on synchro sees them languishing down in 6th.
Listen to the roar as the scoreboard flashes up in the Sandwell Aquatics Centre. A huge cushion now for Noah Williams, Andreas Spendelini-Sirieix at the top in the gold medal position, with Kyle Katari and Lois Toulson also for England in silver, with Cass Rousseau and Emily Boyd of Australia in the bronze for now. But there's going to be a battle for that bronze medal between Australia, Malaysia, possibly even Canada. Scotland's Angus Menmuir and Gemma MacArthur are in 7th, just above Ruby Thorne and Aidan Heslop of Wales, who bring up the rear as we go into this final round of diving.
Solid effort today from Team Scotland, as James and Grace opened up the 3-metre and 1 gold. Angus and Gemma really stepping up what they're capable of today. They will be outside the medals, but that is a wonderfully performance to be really proud of. 2.89 is a good score. There we are. And warmly acknowledged by this crowd, who've been treated to some very closely fought competitions this morning.
Job is done for Team Scotland. Pandelella and Javelin. 4 points from the bronze medal. 4 points behind Casail Rousseau and Emily Boyd of Australia. Can they snatch a place on the Commonwealth podium? Back 2.5 somersaults, 1.5 twists in pike.
Well, they've left it a little bit open, out of time, but the execution is good. Pandelella ahead again, hitting the water first, so the synchro marks will be compromised, but the execution marks will bolster them because they will be elevated. I'd say they would need more than 70 points to put pressure on, and they're under that. So 3:02 is worth noting. That will be close to, if not a sneaky medal. Too much to do for our Welsh pair.
3 Welsh athletes competing in the diving at this Commonwealth Games for the first time. Aidan Heslop was the sole representative 4 years ago on the Gold Coast. The first Welsh diver for 20 years in Australia. Now he's got 2 teammates alongside him. Back 2.5 somersaults, 1.5 twists in pike to sign off on their Commonwealth campaign.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, brilliant to finish. And I'm just delighted that the medical team were able to work with Ruby, and it all came down to this young lady. The 10-metre is incredibly scary and challenging. Imagine being told that you're not allowed to train for a few days before the most important competition of your life, and here she is, taped up, and nails the final dive. Brilliant, that hug says it all. Wonderful work.
Well done, Team Wales.
Okay, for a medal. One colour.
Kyle Katari, Lois Toulson in silver medal position. 17 points, though, behind their teammates Andreas Spendelini-Sirieix and Noah Williams.
A good dive here. Guarantee them a medal.
Malaysia have already laid down the marker. Back 2.5 somersaults, 1.5 twists, 3.2 degree of difficulty.
Ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, go.
Oh, yes!
So good, execution. Bang on the money. Beautifully, beautifully executed by Lois and Kyle. Synchronization is good as well. Ever so slightly different distances from the board. That is a silver medal. It's a silver medal. I'm going to go in with that. Oh, well, let's wait and see. But 318, guaranteed medal. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant stuff.
They're the new leaders, Kyle Katari and Lois Toulson of England. And now they must wait. Canada in 5th. At 14 points behind Casale Rousseau. And the Australians in 4th. Quite a long way back, and all these teams diving same degree of difficulty for their final dives.
1, 2, 3, 1.
Well, it's a very strong finish from Canada, but probably too late to push for a medal. They've been there or thereabouts in this contest, but will fall outside the medals on this occasion, outclassed today.
Canada, done and dusted.
So the next two pairs will decide the medals.
So England's Lois Toulson, Kyle Katari on 318.54. They can be caught by Casale Rousseau, the 10-metre champion from last night, and Emily Boyd.
We do need 80 points on this, which is massive.
And if anyone can do it, Cass Rousseau can.
Ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
Well, they've given it a good go, haven't they? So, in my book, that is definitely good enough for a medal. I do not think that is worth 80 points, and so they should slot in just behind Kyle and Lois for the time being. Be above the Malaysians. I think that's a solid bronze for this pair. All eyes will go to the next pair. Well done, Casale and Emily.
Not enough to beat Lois Toulson and Kyle Katari. But these are the champions-elect, a 17-point cushion over their nearest rivals, their teammates. Coming into this final round. 2 gold medals between them already. This to take home 2 each. Andrea Spendolini-Siriex, Noah Williams.
Ready?
For the
1,
final
2,
gold medal
3,
of this
go.
Commonwealth Games diving competition.
And it's gold for Andrea and Noah, without a doubt. What a performance. They put that out of reach with their dive before, and they have confirmed it with their final dive. Wow, what an end to this contest. Another gold for Team England in the diving pool.
They embraced by the side of the pool. What a star! Andrea Spendolini-Siriex is 17 years old. 2 Commonwealth titles now. And Noah Williams as well, coming of age. 22 now. Gold in the 10-metre synchro a few days ago. And now an historic gold in the mix. The first time, of course, that this competition has been on the Commonwealth Games roster. Melissa Wu and Dominic Bedgood, the highly decorated veterans from Australia.
1,
Well,
2,
they will
3,
end
go.
out of the medals.
Just completing the competition there, outclassed today by the younger pairings. Even with all their experience, they just weren't ever really in this one today. It's all about Team England finishing off. The Australia versus England ding-dong in the diving pool is complete, and England, I believe, are on top.
So let's see the final standings then, shall we? As if the crowd need any more reason to rise to their feet. Andrea Spendolini-Sirieix and Noah Williams, the celebrations can start now. It's another gold medal for Team England. Noah Williams, Andrea Spendolini-Sirieix, 2 each at these games. Kyle Katari, Lois Toulson take the silver. Cass Rousseau, Emily Boyd of Australia, the bronze, with Angus Menmuir, Gemma MacArthur and Ruby Thorne and Aidan Heslop for Scotland and Wales down at the bottom of the standings. But in go Team England!